this meeting to order at 7:37 on May 23rd, 2019. Roll call, please.
Director Boyd?
Here.
Director Marshall?
Here.
Director Slater-Carter?
Present.
Director Harvey?
Here.
Director Roman?
Here.
Good. President's statement. I want to thank the FPPC. There was a complaint filed against Jim Harvey and Eric Marshall. The FPPC gave us their decision almost immediately upon receipt of the comments from the directors, and essentially the FPPC finds that the Enforcement Division found insufficient evidence of a violation of the Political Reform Act, and goes on to explain. And our attorney, who was also involved with this, writes that we're in the view that Directors Marshall and Harvey may participate in the discussions and vote upon the approvals of the SAM General and Collection System budgets and on MWSD's sewer system budget. Parenthetically, they were never barred from voting on the water system budget. So this is very good news for the district for being able to move forward with the business at hand. And I would like to have these two letters attached to the minutes, if you would be so kind. I think for future records, it's important to have them handy. So we are moving on to oral comments. I see no slips, no wildly waving hands. So we will move on to public hearing. We have none. We have no consent agenda. We are at old business number 1, review and possible action concerning Sewer Authority Coast Side, Mid-Coast Side fiscal year 2019-2020 budgets.
Thank you, Catherine. I just want to complete, before I say this, start with the staff reports, that this meeting is really the May 16 meeting, and we adjourned this meeting to today's date. So we're looking at actually staff reports, for example, with the May 16 date. So SAM budget, we looked at the SAM budget. Beverly was here on April 4. We had a close look at the budget. Then on May 2nd, the item was deferred to the May 16, and here we are now on May 23, looking at it again. And this time, we are actually suggesting approval of both budgets. So, brief summary, we have an overall collections budget that is, so we're talking first collections budget, the collections contract, and that's suggested to decrease by $285,000 or 31%. And that's over the prior fiscal year. Now, Catherine found an error in here. This is not the 18-19, so we're talking about the 19-20 assessment for Montara for the collection services increases roughly $13,000 or 4%. The total assessment is in the actual budget and is around $350,000. That's for Montara alone. The general budget is an increase of $1,350,000. That's 22%, and that's a total of $7.4 million for all of SAM. $2 million of those are really the infrastructure division budget. And our total assessment, so operations budget is around $5 million, and the infrastructure division budget is around $2 million. our assessment, Montara's assessment, would increase by $276,000, that's 22%, to a total of now roughly $1.5 million. So again, the recommendation is to adopt two resolutions. One resolution of the Montara Board of Sanitary is consenting to approval by SAM of its general budget for the fiscal year 1920, and resolution of the Montara Board of Sanitary District adopting the fiscal year 1920 wastewater collection system contract services budget.
Discussion. Gentlemen.
I would just like to say that a whole lot of work has gone into getting to this point. This has been heard many times at SAM and SAM committees and here, and I know it's been discussed in a variety of ways here. I'd like to thank staff, I'd like to thank our SAM members and everyone who's been involved in helping get this prepared. This is the result of a lot of discussion and negotiation and compromise and prioritization and sifting and culling and trying to make things fit in a way that addresses the key priorities without unduly burdening our ratepayers, of which we are all also members of that group. We may not talk a lot about it tonight, but this is the result of a whole lot of people's work and effort. I express my thanks to everyone and want the public to know that this is the result of a lot of work.
Can't disagree with that. Fully agree. I think thanks for Catherine for catching the mistake there on the collections, because I had a question on that. So Clemens, thanks for bringing that up. I think it's nice to be a part of this discussion, and actually I think as a whole it seems within reason from my perspective from Montara.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, I'd like to add one change. Yes, and that is on the resolutions, I would like to see for the approval, the billing amounts in them, they don't have a number. And so the one for the collection system should be $341,500 and some dollars, and the one for SAM for its general budget should also have the $1 million, what is it? $1,529,529 $529,139 anyway, so that it's right there in the text, as opposed to having it defined from the attachments, which may be hard to find in a couple of years.
You're asking for the figures to be included in the
Yes.
figures? Okay.
Yes.
If I may add to this, in the past, we actually identified the date of the budget. There was in the past confusions on various versions of the budget. Maybe we add this as well into the resolution,
That would be great.
just to stay consistent.
I want to be sure I have the date.
So for the first and the second, do we have agreement for the amendments?
Agree?
Agree.
Okay.
Let's see, when we have
I don't have.
we don't have a date on the budget, you're
Good.
right, Dave.
Right, yeah.
That's, okay. We have it on staff report.
Yeah.
So we have the appropriate budget date and the specific amounts. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Review and possible action concerning draft water and sewer budget.
Thank you, Catherine. So this is really the first draft that we're bringing to the board, and we usually do that in a brief fashion and ask for this budget to be referred to the Finance Committee. I just explained that we actually had a series of meetings, so this is originally from the May 2nd meeting. We have been working, of course, in the background on improving this budget, but we left the old version in here. So our hope is that we can get this referred to the Finance Committee. We'd like to meet with the Finance Committee next week and then hopefully bring I'm going to call it a first final on the June 6th meeting it is. And if we need to tweak something, we have a second meeting in June to complete the budget. That's the idea behind this now. So once again, we'd like to refer this to the Finance Committee and then review with the Finance Committee, bring it back to next meeting.
Good. I would like to have a list of all the changes from this budget that's on this agenda to what the Finance Committee is going to be looking at before the meeting,
Before
the Finance Committee meeting.
the Finance Committee meeting, well, you actually have somewhat of a list in the staff report already, but there are some more items.
So I would appreciate that, thank you.
Sure.
Comments?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, it would be very helpful, just if anything, to highlight exactly where the changes
Well,
are.
you'll get, first of all, the newest version as soon as possible.
Right.
It's the first step that we work on a list of changes from this budget to the next budget, the one that we sent out.
Sounds good. Okay. Gentlemen, comments, motion? Not to hurry you along or anything.
I motion.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made by Eric Marshall, seconded by Jim Harvey. Comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. On to old business 3, review and possible action concerning change of regular meeting time to 7 o'clock.
So this was already on the May 2nd agenda. This is the last item that is originating from the May 2nd meeting. That was a meeting where Director Lohman was not here, and the board,
I was not having fun.
well, the board insisted that you should be present for the discussion, and we have a full board tonight, so the question from Director Harvey was to consider a change from the start time of all of our regular scheduled board meetings from currently 7:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. This is agendized as a, well, we can take action, but we didn't prepare the necessary documents, and so in case the board would like to go in the direction, we would have to actually prepare a code amendment and bring that back to the board.
And this would serve, it's my understanding, to make the meetings half an hour longer if possible, because our mandatory start time is at 11 o'clock, so,
End time.
End time. Or end time, instead of.
end time, yes, mandatory stop time unless we choose to continue on. So that's,
You can't blame that on me.
no, I won't blame that on you, but all the bars are closed by then. If we make our mandatory stop time at 8:30,
We're good.
so discussion, gentlemen, please.
From my perspective, I don't have an issue with it, but.
Scott, you're the one who has trouble getting here.
The most.
Gotta have a commute, so.
I would prefer to leave it at 7:30 so that, and maybe move our end time to 10:30 so that we can,
I'm definitely in favor of doing what we can to give ourselves incentive to get out of here, and 10:30 is a lot better than 11. I mean, there are certainly times where we need to extend, but I think if we set a goal for ourselves, it might be useful to get us that same kind of half-hour benefit. And I'll do my part.
I'm for that too. So, Rick, does that affect you? Is that-
No,
is
my
that the-
original thought was just, it seemed to be working with Sam. Sam starts at 7 o'clock, and everybody at that time involved got there and got through it. And we usually have 10 to 12 people here. That got everybody home a half an hour earlier was the idea. It's not like it's
So
the
let's
most
focus-
critical thing in the world. But,
So let's focus on the getting home early part. And,
getting out of here and
So Scott, you have a challenge
It's
to get
not a-
here by 7 o'clock, and then a challenge.
Yeah,
for
it
you.
is. I mean, getting
Traffic
to Sam at
laws.
7 was always a challenge, and then getting on that from Half Moon Bay to here is always at least another 15, and often longer, depending on. The earlier we come in, the longer that stretch takes.
That's fine, if you guys, I just thought it was a reasonable thing to do.
Well,
And,
I really think that, focusing on the end time, which if that was the goal, is to get us out of here earlier. I'm really glad you brought it up. I'm totally supportive.
I'm supportive of that too. I like the idea of starting a regular time and then getting out half an hour early is fine.
Do we have a motion?
My motion.
I move that we modify our target end time to 10:30 from long-standing 11.
And I second that.
I don't think we need to do anything besides revising the agenda in this case, but we'll make sure that
Just in case,
We're doing
let's make it official that it's, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Abstentions. So our meeting times will begin at 7:30 and end at 10:30,
Unless extended.
unless extended by a vote of the majority. Okay, moving on to new business. Review and possible action concerning district's proposed water capital improvement program.
Thank you, Catherine. So before I take too much away from this presentation, we have Tanya here, our water engineer, and she's going to actually give a slide presentation and explain this item a little bit in more detail. But before we move, what this item for me is showing the need, the necessity for our capital improvement program and for a need to continue to stay on top of our achievements for this water system. And what this ultimately means is that we most likely have to go out. This is a preparation for our finance committee meeting. Also, we have to think along the lines of a rate study very soon. We mentioned that already last year. We have a 3% rate increase planned for this fiscal year, but I think after Tanya's presentation, we're gonna understand that we have a need for most likely more. And so we have to start thinking about this. With that, Tanya, if I can. So if I'm gonna turn this on now, Catherine, before you wanna put the shades on now?
No, I'm just going to move to the back.
Okay.
We do.
Incoming.
Thank you, Clemens. Madam President, members of the board, there are two things in front of you tonight. One is the item itself in the agenda and this presentation in addition. So they're complementary to one another. This is not. As you may recall, many years ago, in fact, in 2003, when the district became in full ownership of the water system, this board has established the priorities for its projects for the capital improvements program for the water facilities. And I would like to, before I start the presentation about the projects that we're proposing for the next 5-year CIP, I would like to bring your attention to the, there are 3 actual priority levels, but I'm only listing 2, the most important ones. They're level 1 and level 2. Level 1 includes mandatory projects. They're usually regulatory driven or required because of the health and safety protection of the employees and the public, and the projects funded by others. Case in point, when you see big number, the big wave main extension, $2.5 million, that project is going to be fully paid by Big Wave, not by the district, but it's included in the CIP as a project funded by others. And then level 2 are necessary projects. They must be done, but there's some discretion of this board as to when they can happen. So with that, let me start again. The capital improvement program prioritizes projects, identifies them, and with the purpose of ensuring reliable water supply for years to come for this district. And we're scheduling projects according to future needs and available budget. However, what you're going to see in front of you today is an attempt to show the necessity to accelerate some of the projects and move them forward. The way we approach the CIP development, we first look at deficiency analysis, what are the needs, and we conduct infrastructure inspection and assessment, talk to the operators, and of course the major driving force also is the State Water Resource Control Board sanitary survey findings. What they do is the sanitary engineer responsible for this water system comes every year and inspects the system. Last year, they came twice. They did a 2-day review, and you will see their findings and the resulting projects. They establish deadlines for the district to implement improvements. Of course, what we do is we negotiate and attempt to give the district more time. Some of the improvements we thought were some of the things that were listed in the letters. These are very long, detailed correspondence that we get on June 4th and June 14th. They came out. Some of them we were able to postpone or address right away. Some are very minor, some are really big. The other element of the CIP that in front of you is we have 2 CIPs. We have the existing customer CIP, the projects that are for existing ratepayers, and they are financed by water rates. And then we have projects that are needed for future customers or new customers, and they are financed by water connection fees. This is just a reminder that we have 2 parts to each CIP. And we project for 5 years. We have 5 programs in the existing customer CIP. The distribution system renewal and replacement, that's the pipes in the ground mostly and valves. The water conservation program, the storage tank rehabilitation program, a replacement of the existing emergency generators, and the vehicle replacement fund. The estimated cost the investment that needs to go into replacing water meters, miscellaneous repairs, and renewal of the distribution system piping, fire hydrants, and so on, The estimated cost is $1,105,000 and change. That's for over 5 years, starting next fiscal year, July 1st. The water conservation program is very important, and the cost is relatively low. The estimated cost over the past 12 years is $45,000. The district has achieved remarkable results with the water conservation program. Storage. As you recall, we have constructed a few years back a new Alta Vista tank number 2. Now the existing Alta Vista tank number 1 does need repair. The pillarage reservoirs, there are 2 tanks there, also above grade metal tanks are in need of corrosion protection and repair. So the estimated cost for that program is $550,000 over 5 years. The emergency generators, the district has been working on replacing the existing non-functional generators, and moving forward, the estimated cost over 5 years to replace the entire fleet of generators is $450,000. Vehicle replacement at $80,000. This board has approved, I think, 2 vehicles just last time. So that has been a regular program in the existing customer CIP. So the total estimated cost over 5 years, these are all the 5 programs, comes to a little over $2.2 million over 5 years. That's just a summary of what you saw before. Now the new customer CIP, that is financed by water connection fees, and as I mentioned, the Big Wave will pay for its own water main extension. We have water main upgrade program. The difference between an upgrade program and a repair program, this is the need, if there's a need for upsizing the mains. Existing wells upgrade, where we managed to, the district has been very successful in upgrading the existing wells to serve new customers. If we need to upsize the generators, the schoolhouse booster pump station is in good condition. The district has been doing remarkably well with it, but if we need to upsize it, that would be under this program. Patrol tank telemetry upgrade and additional supply reliability. That is an important program to maintain the reliability of the supply of the district. Again, these are estimated costs at $1.8 million of upgrading the mains, $780,000 to upgrade existing wells. That includes upgrading the equipment, motor control centers, pumps, motors, power supply, but also increasing the capacity of the wells. PRV stations, some of them need to be upgraded at a cost of over $1 million over 5 years. The generators, $700,000 in that program, and we need to replace the automatic transfer switches, and it's a major safety issue, and of course, in the case of an emergency, a very, very important item. That's the booster pump station. It looks very good, actually. And Portola pump station telemetry upgrade at $250,000. And additional supply reliability at $1.7 million includes a lot of effort in planning, permitting, and implementation for water supply augmentation. That to maintain the reliability. right now, the district, just to remind you from our water master plan, has a 20% reliability cushion, which means there's extra supply that ensures reliability. So to maintain that, we would need to eventually start spending money to acquire new sources. The Big Wave water main extension project is estimated at a 12-inch diameter, over 4,400 foot long water main extension to serve the Big Wave North Parcel development. And is included in the CIP, but not in the water connection fee calculations because that's a separate project that will be paid by the developer. This is another summary of the new customer CIP. The total in the purple line is at $6.7 million to be paid by the new customer connection charges.
Over what period of time is that again?
That's a 5-year CIP.
5 years.
Do we have that many new customers scheduled to come on? That sounds like a lot of money.
Sounds like a lot of customers.
Well, remember, 2.5 million of those are one new customer.
Yeah, but even when you take that out, there's still 7 million over. My question, that's a very good question, is do we have the
Could you
capacity?
go back?
It's a very good question, yes.
Could you go back one? Sorry. Oh.
Isn't it fun to
Sorry.
have customers? Or-
That's fine.
That's a future, that's more than
That's a
5 years
future
out.
customer.
Those are all 3D photos.
I see it forward.
There we go.
What is very important to remember, thank you for that question, Director Marshall. The new customer CIP will be expended. The funds will be expended only as they come in. In other words, and the need arises. We're projecting this, the need, but if there are fewer customers coming in and fewer connection fees, then the district is not spending the money.
Got it.
So that is totally dependent on the connection fees collected and how many customers will connect.
So on that point, I know that you've made it very clear that should the Big Wave project go through, that the extension is at their expense. But what I think we need to, I want to reiterate is that if it goes through, and whether or not it goes through isn't a function of this agency. This is a function of county planning and permitting and coastal commission, all those bodies. If they proceed with this project, this is to clarify that that expense would be on that project, not on the ratepayers in our district.
Absolutely.
And we're not doing anything that counts on this to happen, right?
No, we're not. Not at all. But the reason it has to be included here is it belongs in this category of mandatory projects.
Right.
If the customer pays, the district acquires the asset.
Right, I mean, the reason I bring it up is because there's been some suspicion that this agency is doing something to facilitate it and possibly, put expense onto the ratepayers for the benefit of the project, and you've just made clear that that is absolutely not the case. We don't need the project. If the project happens, our ratepayers don't pay for it. The project itself will pay for it.
That's correct.
And then I know we've established other times, maybe we could say, the district has the capacity to serve this should it get built without straining or putting at risk the rest of the district.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Is the affordable housing project that's in the planning stage right now included in this, or will that be added later?
That will be added later because we have virtually no information and no one has come in and gave us any information. So it's not included.
Okay, thank you.
the district can serve the new developments, as we know. However, we have very, very little information, so it's premature to even include it at the CIP level. The reason big wave is included because we have received the information. We have the drawings for preliminary approval. The county is proceeding with, we have some kind of understanding, and they've actually filled out an application
And
for water service.
The county permitted the project.
Yes.
I got another question. Both on this CIP and prior CIP, you have an emergency generator upgrade program. Are these separate generators, different kinds of generators? Can that be combined or anything?
So the idea is, we're trying very hard to distinguish between replacing in kind,
Mhm.
that's what existing customers will pay for, and the
Okay.
difference, if we have to upsize, is paid for by the new customers.
Okay.
Alright, so when you're projecting, Tanya, I think I know the answer, but I'd like to hear from you is, when you're projecting new customers, is this based off of new customer history here of growth in the area?
It's based on the LCP,
Okay,
1%,
1%.
that's it.
So there's no assessment of whether Montara actually has that many, the area has that much growth potential, is what I'm trying to get at. You see what I'm?
Yeah, the growth potential is there. I mean, the 1% could translate into 40 new connections per year, and that is what we can see at any year,
Right.
but we haven't.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking year over year for 5 years, if we hit 40, would we hit 40 for, would that be 200 actual new homes? New connections?
Could
I mean,
very well be,
potentially,
yes.
I mean, not that we've seen that, but that's, okay, that's just,
It's
what-
clearly there.
okay.
Yeah,
And that limit was set in place by San Mateo County.
yes, this is the local
Yeah.
coastal
Yeah.
program, is a planning document,
That's right. I just-
which has nothing to do really with it, well, has
For our-
everything to do
For our
with it.
audience, I just wanted to be really clear, that planning, that growth number, that's our county supervisors.
It's
That's
our
right.
county supervisor. So for example, we're looking, Catherine just mentioned the project across the street. There's a current change to this suggested project to modify the number of units from over 200 to currently 71. Now, what's not clear to me is how does this work with the 40 limit, for example? That's a county question.
Yeah.
So we might have to digest 71 units in 1 year, or we might piecemeal those over 2 years.
And does each unit pay the connection fee, correct?
That's correct, yes. Yeah,
Well, no, we're gonna charge the project and they can divvy them up between the units, right? We're
Right.
not doing them on a per unit
Right.
basis.
if it's a single family home or 71 units, the developer pays for the connection fees, yes,
Exactly.
at the time of
But
construction.
if it's 71 units, we get 71 connections. It's not some kind of,
Yes,
I know I've
that's,
seen other ones, well, now you have to give them a 50% discount or something. We would, if it was
No.
71, we get 71.
it's 71 units.
Okay.
Yes.
Each
I mean, if the amount of meters, how that is divided, that depends, but it would reflect 71 units and connection fees for 71 units. And also back to Scott's point, of course, if there are any upgrades to the system needed for a large project like the one across the street, then the developer has to pay in full for those upgrades, system upgrades.
Just wanted to bring back, also to the existing customer CIP. It's very important. I think that to reflecting on what Clemens mentioned about the rates, this, no matter what we do with for the new customers, that's the connection fees, this is on rates. This is on water revenue. The district has made major improvements, as you probably know. We have upgraded treatment at one of the wells, airport well number 3. There's a bunch of main replacements and improvements at the wells that have happened, but that program needs to continue. And these programs are, as I mentioned, some of the elements of them are mandated by the state. They're especially unhappy right now with the storage tank, and they want the rehabilitation happen, not immediately, but within the next 2 years.
Why is the state making these demands? What has changed? Because 2 years, that's not much time. And they've been out looking at it. Has something changed?
It's a good question. Our engineer, the engineer who's responsible for the system, actually had a conversation with him trying to understand why all of a sudden they're very adamant and very unbending. We used to have the ability to negotiate things or delay things or get some reasonable accommodations, because what the state looks at is they trust this district to do the right thing, and that reputation has always been there for the district. What Eric Lacey told me that he doesn't have that leeway anymore. The directive from the top, the directive comes from the top and says, it's just we interpret, basically they're not interpreting the law, or they're not interpreting the regulations anymore. They're just saying, this is what it says, you go do this. And it's very black and white. We did, on numerous occasions, the district staff has engaged with the state, because the district is a very well-run system, and we have always followed up on our promises. We never failed to deliver, but they just want things done.
So if I can add to this, there's, in my mind, there's 2 significant changes that happened over the past years, and it's a little more than 2 years, but we saw the Department of Public Health actually be moved to the State Water Resources Control Board.
Right.
So I think that's definitely, so ultimately we can say that the Division of Drinking Waters heads were changed out, right? So we see a new directive now that's coming from the State Water Resources Control Board directly. And the other fact that has changed for us as a district is that we've taken state revolving fund money. So we built now the Alta Vista tank with SRF funds, and that is something that was directly mentioned as a reason for, at least to me, as a reason for increased scrutiny that we've received. And I think Tanya hasn't expressed, I think she was very conservative in expressing how much this actually is happening right now. So we're really subject to a lot of control. Unfortunately, there is actually staff turnovers at the State Water Resources Control Board, at our regulators, that adds to these complications where we see, young, it's usually, young engineers out of school that start in these positions. Let's face it, we can be open here. And we've had in the recent 2 years, four people that we had to introduce into our system, educate, train, that ask hard questions, that try to regulate us, and I think we've seen a little bit of, we're on the receiving end of that staff now, very clearly.
There's also, it appears to be directive coming from EPA. Very kind of,
EPA,
Yes.
feds.
Yes, so
They noticed
regulatory,
Montara? I said the EPA noticed Montara?
no, I'm sorry, but no.
Do you know whether this is happening in other states, or is this just California?
I'm sad to tell you that it's happening in the Bay Area mostly. Because we have clients in Southern California where there's sanitary engineers not paying attention at all. So I don't know.
So in Nancy Pelosi's area, it's happening, and in Kevin McCarthy's area, it's not happening. I'm perfectly fine with complying with EPA regulations, but $500,000 in 2 years for no apparent urgent reason seems like a waste of ratepayer funds. Unless this fits with our understanding of the need of this facility, I'm interested in exploring this a little further.
I hear you. This has been in the CIP for a while. We have planned to rehab the tanks.
Okay.
This was in the plan. We are negotiating the timeframe, so that is still under negotiation. So it's not a surprise. The district planned these projects to happen.
The timing is a concern. As Eric pointed out, this is a lot of money for a small district, and I'm glad to know that we're negotiating. Negotiating in the light of the unequal application of the regulations might be a point in the negotiation.
you brought us up.
We
Brought
have,
us up.
believe me, we are using all our personal knowledge and connections. In connections, what I mean by connections is with other districts in the state to point this out.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me, since you had such a ready answer when I asked about the possible disparity. I'm glad that
As you
you guys are
know,
on this.
you know about Redwood Glen,
Yep.
who almost lost their water system. And they were very militant and very strict with them. It was just, at the same time, we're looking at another water system in the south, down south, that the regulators are looking at us and say, tell us what we should be saying.
Yeah.
Different it's different personnel.
Redwood Glen is a nonprofit down back behind Lomomar, and they had a failed water system, and they started working with the state and got permission to build their own water system.
Yes.
But it was, I believe, it was a gross abuse of regulatory power, the kind of screws they put to those guys. It was several times they thought they had satisfied all the regulatory requirements, only to find out that there was more to be done. And hitting a nonprofit that way is just, it's a serious abuse. Thankfully, they had some very good help, and had great forbearance and got them through it. It's a good final outcome, but I think we have to speak up. I know you are, but for our community, we have to speak up when these national political games are being played out with our pocketbooks.
Is there some way we could pursue this elsewhere, politically, through our legislative?
Get our friends in Kentucky to vote.
Well, I have a question, considering the sensitivity of all of this, I guess I'll just make it as my statement. I would prefer that when the regulators come out, that it's only Tanya and Clemens who are dealing with them, so we don't get stray comments, offhanded comments that might make things problematic, because I know sometimes when somebody says something meaning it to be tongue-in-cheek, it may not be taken that way by these young regulators. And so I think we need to be particularly careful on that one. I had that problem, for instance, when McDonald's would want to come in and talk to my crew, and we had to make sure that we had a manager or either Ed or I at the official's elbow to make sure that things weren't said in an offhand manner that could have been taken wrong.
Oh, let me be clear, nothing I said was tongue-in-cheek.
No, I understand that.
But I'm fully supportive of our staff and consultant being the ones doing this. They're the pros at this. They clearly have good command of the situation. Part of that is understanding the inequity in the distribution of the enforcement. So I think that a number like this needs to be, clearly we have attention to the state of our infrastructure. We have professionals looking at it, prioritizing it, and being very much in touch with what the ratepayers can handle and how fast, and whether or not, bubbling the priorities to the top, and having external forces playing games at a political national level. It's not games. It's real people here, and I'm glad that we've got professionals on it.
So, yeah, I think for now it should be just Clemens and SRT who are present.
I didn't think anyone was suggesting it otherwise.
Thank you.
Who would like to lean first on, having less frequent visits?
Do they,
That would be
they
the
give
start.
you notice when they're coming out?
It's a huge burden
Yes.
for the district to educate a new
But
engineer.
you don't have
aggressive-
surprise visits, right? It's always noted.
It's no surprise visits. However, visits are usually on a 3-year basis. We have seen those on an annual basis
Annual,
since we applied for this.
yeah.
That's
so
something to
it's-
keep in mind. SRF used to be this go-to, reasonable, low-cost money source. Now it comes with strings.
That's right, particularly there's iBank around, and the rates are very comparable, and there are much less strings attached to iBank funds.
And due to the district's very good standing financially, it's,
Right.
so much better. So the cash flow distribution for the 2.2 million, currently, before the finance committee review, is at about $350,000 a year for the first 2 years, and then 600,000 in the third year of the CIP, another 600,000, and then drop into 320. So, of course, when you're looking at the CIP, that's in your packet there, the distribution. The budget only includes the first year of the CIP. Everything else is a projection, and that can be used for the rate study and will be used for that purpose. But it also shows you the cash flow requirements. Anything else? Thank you.
Take your time.
All right, thank you. So this was not an action item. We'll bring this, of course, back with the entire budget and potential revisions and for board approval. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you for clarifying that the projects that the county is imposing on our community
are paying their own way. I think that's important for our public to know. Okay, we are moving right along to reports. Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side. Do you want to handle that, Rick?
Hang on a second. It wasn't here. Oh, there was the, I was preparing all the other meetings and not that one.
Oh,
I was gonna comment on Aqua and
well,
CSDA. and-
let me pull up
I
there,
left
that
that.
agenda, and then we can come back, we'll come back to it. Mid-Coast Community Council meeting. Hopefully folks will watch that, and the meeting was last night, and there was a discussion on the affordable housing project. Because I'm on a regulatory body, I did not attend, and but I think everyone in the community needs to pay attention to this. It will have a huge impact on us. And as you can see, it will be paying for its own water and sewer upgrades, if any are needed. But there's going to be other impacts on the community, and as people pay attention to, I think people should pay attention to this and should speak out. If you don't speak out, once it's approved by Coastal, it will be too late. But this is in the design phase, and this is the time that you can have an impact. They have gone for a local coastal program amendment to reduce the number of units down to 71, but there can be other conditions attached to that by Coastal, and one of them should be that they should entirely have on-site parking, and they should not impact the neighborhoods. My personal opinion, of course. But for those who drive down Airport Boulevard at night, you will notice that there's about I've been clocking it on my odometer, it's about a mile long now of additional cars because of the shortage of parking that was put into Pillar Ridge. People are, in spite of all the great ideas for transit, more people own more cars now than in the past. So for every family, if there are 2 people in the family, there may be 3 cars. Just saying. So this is time for folks to pay attention, please. I will look up the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side agenda, and while Rick is reporting on the CSDA.
The CSDA, I'm going to move to LAFCO from that, because that's why we're on LAFCO. At the last LAFCO meeting last week, they have a standard thing they do every 2 months, and they annex some people into the West Bay Sanitary District. This just goes on and on. I don't know if it's a problem or anything, but they just seem to, when the original planning or the boundaries were set up, all these people who were outside in the unincorporated area or the unserved areas are just being annexed to 1 or 2 every couple months. It's on, even on the consent agenda now. The other big thing for us is LAFCO's main function here is doing these big studies of all the special districts and all the cities in the area. And they gave us the schedule for the next couple of years. And the good news, I guess, for us, because it's very time consuming, is that we're not on the next couple of years. Locally, though, the San Mateo RCD, which is here in town, is up in August. South San Francisco and Westboro are up in August of this year. Down south of us in Pescadero area is in September of this year. Then San Bruno, Millbrae, Burlingame, and some of the other cities. So we have a reprieve for a while until we go through that again. So that's really all that happened at LAFCO. What also is not on the list, but I'd like to do a short one on Aqua. Clemens and I went to the Aqua convention down in Monterey, Just first, I'd like to say that after listening to all the districts in Central California, we are amazingly lucky here on the coast to have a great water supply, great staff to maintain it, and great plans to keep it maintained. Because you just ought to see the other problems. We're basically with subsidence and nitrates, and 3% don't even have legal drinking water that's, palatable and stuff like this. So there are just a lot of problems, and because of our group here, luckily we don't have most of those. The other kind of interesting thing was, you may have heard the term in weather, a couple of years ago, it was the Arctic vortex they created to make a new sound, and our latest one was the atmospheric rivers. They are doing a lot of study into that as a serious, not an issue, but a serious phenomenon. And the good part about that is they're going to be getting better and better at predicting when these rains are coming, like we saw all this month. But even more important, trying to study how much water is going to come down during that period and the time durations. Because there's been a conflict between reservoirs run by the Army Corps of Engineers and all the water people. The Army Corps at the reservoirs say, when the water gets to here, we release water, and it just goes to the ocean. They've been negotiating now up to 15% above that by showing the engineers, look, this river is going to last for so long, then there's going to be a gap of a week or two where we're not going to get any rain. So they're saying, well, okay, then we don't need to keep the reservoirs artificially low, because we'll let them go up now, because in a week they'll go down again. So all that, hopefully, and if we get better and better forecasting of those rivers, then we'll be able to maintain more of our water instead of just letting it go to the ocean. So that was the best thing I thought at the conference.
Okay.
Back to you, Catherine.
Okay, going to the SAM board meeting for May 13th. We approved a loan agreement with PG&E for not to exceed $149,000. We authorized the general manager to purchase 2 high-speed turbo blowers for the system, and those will save about $29,000 a year just in efficiencies, and we will save more than that. So the payback period for which is will be fairly quick for the $425,000 expenditure.
I think it was about 5 or 6 years.
It was 5 or 6 years, yeah, it was a huge.
And these have like no maintenance, no oiling.
Exactly,
nothing.
and those were not
You
calculated.
can adjust the volume in it. They're better on like everything.
Exactly, and that was not calculated in the
They make ice cream
29,000.
on its own.
We reviewed and approved the design documents for the new expanded wet weather storage facility down in Granada Sanitary District, Granada Community Services District, next to the highway, and that was not quite $30,000. And we authorized the bid documents and the bid procedures for the expansion of that. The fine from the broken pipe several years ago, part of that fine will be used to assist the payment of this expansion. And it will, again, greatly increase the efficiency of the plant and the ability to work on the plant and to prevent major spills. If Granada and Montara had not built the wet weather storage expansion facility when we did, our fines for this broken pipe would have been horrendous. The staff was very, very good at being able to stop the flows from Granada at night to be able to work on the pipes and then put in a temporary bypass expanding this will make a huge difference for operations, procedures, and costs, and potential fines in the future. I will note that Half Moon Bay paid for the, or approved the expansion of the wet weather storage facility expansion under protest. So it may be, depending on what happens with the lawsuit and negotiations, we may be paying for it in its, and Granada in its entirety.
Can I ask,
Even though it protects Half Moon Bay beaches.
can I ask who by name protested
The entire city council. The two,
and their names?
the two that voted on it were Deborah Ruddock and Deborah Penrose, but there is also Adam Eisen, Harvey Rareback, and
Actually, the ones that voted on it at that, I was at that meeting, it was Harvey and Deborah Ruddock.
oh, it was Harvey and Deborah Ruddock in
So-
particular. And they are doing this under direction of their litigant attorney.
Do you recall who voiced the protest?
No,
Was that Harvey or
it was
Deborah?
It was Harvey.
It was Harvey Rareback.
Yeah.
Said that Sam, that Montara or Granada might have to pay for something that is necessary for the protection of the environment and the public safety of which
And
they are,
Half Moon Bay.
of which they are a contractual partner in. Is that,
That's a fair statement.
so Harvey,
Accurate.
Harvey led the way on trying to say that Half Moon Bay has no dog in this fight and shouldn't have to pay for keeping people in the environment safe.
That's it?
In addition to the added maintenance capabilities there were two major rain systems that came through, and the wet weather project held all the excess for that. And I was regularly calling Sam during that time, and one time it filled essentially to capacity, which means if we hadn't done that, tens of thousands of gallons would have been dumped all over the place because there would have been no place to put it. And that happened on 2 occasions, and Half Moon Bay would have been paying half the fines. And they couldn't have done that under protest. So, although we saved them twice, they've still been, let's say, relatively belligerent, and now they're protesting anyway. So.
You say they could have done it under protest. I found it outrageous that they're trying to do this under protest when this is part and parcel with protecting the community and
Yep.
the environment, which is the very foundational reason for the existence of the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side and partnership that we have.
That's right.
So that Harvey and Deborah would be out there. I understand the council is saying this, but Harvey is mayor, for crying out loud. So, it's not like somebody's, poking him from behind to do this. He has agency, and if he's getting up there saying it, it's because he believes it. And I think our community needs to know that people like Harvey are out there saying that they're just gonna wash their hands of this whole matter and leave the cost to everybody else. And, they'll may care about what happens to the public safety and the environment, and that's just outrageous.
And moving on, so Sam adopted a resolution updating the sanitary sewer maintenance plan as required by regulators. And we authorized the general manager to execute a contract with City Mechanical to replace an HVAC unit on a rooftop. We increased the price on that because when it was first on the agenda, I asked if they had gotten the rust proofing additions since we're so close to the ocean, and they said no, so it increased it about $1,500, increased the price $1,500 to $2,000. The big news and the sad news is that the general manager has resigned effective June 11. And this is a general manager who has made huge progress on policies, is well liked by the staff, and she will be moving to Indio, so we need to find an interim general manager and then a new permanent general manager. Beverly Marshall has been there, I think, the longest since Dave Dixon was there. We've had this revolving door. I will note that Half Moon Bay suggested that we use Half Moon Bay staff to run the plant. Then they suggested Dave Dixon. And then they suggested I forget, Larry Patterson, who is an ex-Half Moon Bay city manager. We are,
City council.
and city council member. He was a city manager and a city council member.
No, just council.
Just council?
Council member is on SAM board.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that correction.
So,
I don't know what we'd do without you, Lou.
if I could chime in, I think at this point in time, given the great stresses at SAM and the partnership, that it would behoove us all to work with people who have no relationship with any of the three agencies.
Agreed.
Certainly not the agency that brought the lawsuit. And I would dismiss out of hand any recommendation from them, but in fairness, I think it should be any recommendation brought from any of us, from any people that we've worked with. It's worked with or had on our boards or councils. Right now is not the time to go in and have dalliances with the power structure of SAM.
This is a particularly sensitive point right now. We have been, without attributing blame, also in need of a new attorney. And we have put out 2 requests for proposals and come up with no attorneys either time. So Sam is in a bit of a, will be in a bit of a delicate position. Would you like to be take my place, Scott? I think we can handle it, but.
I feel like the phrase, "I've done my time,"
Yeah.
I'm particularly sympathetic to anyone who has stuck it out at SAM, and I send my very best regards to Beverly, who has endured a very difficult situation, not of her creation, but she's certainly been right at the focal point of a lot of the dispute, and I hope that she finds in this new position something that's a lot more joyful.
In talking with her, it sounds like a very exciting position, and I may be reporting on any news I get here and at SAM, just for, so we can see what a JPA that's looking forward can do instead of nursing grudges. So that's the SAM report. Moving right along, attorney's report.
Madam President, you referred to the FPPC opinion with respect to the former Director Huber's complaint. In my email memo to you this afternoon, I indicated that our recommendation is that our office need not request a further opinion from the FPPC with respect to the budget reviews on the basis of the determination on the complaint. I would ask that the board confirm that our determination not to request further a separate opinion as you had authorized in the past.
Do we need just direction? Should we put that on our agenda next time for an official vote, since it's not on the agenda now?
If you feel it's significant, otherwise, you could have the minutes of this meeting reflect a consensus of the board.
Sounds fine.
Do we have any?
I was really interested in getting their read on it, because their opinions are always quite informative. But I think in light of their letter, I think the question's been asked and answered. So, I mean, having read the complaint, so I'm perfectly willing to remain curious, but not see no need to pursue that further.
I agree.
Should we encounter any other concerns, then we can always turn and submit a question.
I think the FPPC letter was very, very clear, saying they can see no reason, and they went in to explain it, and it will be attached to the minutes if folks want to see it.
Yeah. So thank you for asking, and,
So unless I hear it to the contrary now, we will not submit a request for an opinion that would be unnecessary.
I think it would be duplicative.
Yeah.
Moving on to general manager's report. Oh, director's reports. Directors, we have anything to say?
I've already said my piece.
All right, general manager's report.
Yeah, I want to follow Rick's example and talk a little bit about my perspectives that I've taken from the Aqua conference. And the main topic was actually really the new, the Newsom administration moving into Sacramento. And with a big bang, really, because they're suggesting the water tax. And we haven't really talked much about the water tax here. And one of the reasons is because, of course, we are not a large agency that has any influence in what happens in Sacramento in this regard whatsoever. However, so the proposal from the administration is to essentially tax all customers in California, all water customers in California, to subsidize then failing water systems in California. I want to point out that most of these failing water systems are privately owned water systems. So I'm not quite sure how, I mean, obviously this isn't well received in the community of water agencies.
That's putting it mildly in the 80s.
Yeah.
were there pitchforks and torches?
There were nasty things.
Almost,
There were
yes.
nasty things.
I'm glad to hear that. I've mentioned the coming water tax, and I feel they're asking successful public agencies to pay for the mistakes of approval by counties and/or cities and/or whoever's in charge. I know of one project in another county that was approved by the County Board of Supervisors. It was a project for several hundred houses. It did not meet the requirement of 500 houses to prove that it had water. And so it was built, and all of a sudden they discovered they had no water. And so it was incumbent on they ended up putting in their own water system, but I know the water in that particular area, I'm willing to bet it is very poor quality and probably poor quantity. And so Montara folks and San Francisco folks would be asked to pick up the bill for that. And I know there's lots of other ones. When we were taking over the water system, I got calls from people all over the state about what could they do to copy us.
Well, not just all over the state, but remember Kentucky called us.
That's right.
It's, we've been down and personal with dealing with the corporate water barons. I remember when we met with the I forget what his title was, but the imperious one from Thames Water, the Popinjay, he was quite something as he tried to talk down to us at the CPUC meeting, trying to explain to us how misguided we were about public ownership of water. That was quite satisfying to take the keys to the agency. But it shouldn't come as any surprise to anybody that the corporate water barons are out there trying to get public money to fix their own lack of investment.
Right. And so I think there's going to be a broad discussion happening about this topic. Aqua is involved in this, and so we'll talk about this going forward, I'm certain. Besides that, of course, we're always looking for presentations that have some benefit to us, and as Rick already mentioned, quite a bit of what happens in the world of water is, of course, focused on issues in the Delta and Central Valley, and are somewhat removed from us. I always see a connection to the harbor district, actually. There's people that depend on fisheries out here, so I think there is a connection to us, but it's somewhat removed. The presentations that stuck in my mind were, first of all, the regulatory issues are increasing for other agencies as well. There is, of course, infrastructure replacement needs in California wherever you look. It's simply the fact that this state most of the infrastructure was built around over 40 years ago and is now need to be replaced. So that means for others to take a look at rates as well, and that's I think a big wave that is coming here with some heftier rate increases through the state, mainly driven through infrastructure costs.
Right.
So there was some good discussions on the necessary outreach on this front, and as we've seen in the context of drought, we benefit from larger agencies getting the message out, so we can expect that in the coming years, really. Well, we have to always do our own job and keep our community informed. I think we'll hear a lot about that in the coming years, in the near future on TV, etc. Another presentation that's stuck somewhat was a lot of fire preparedness was a topic, particularly with the follow-up from the Paradise and what was the Napa fire?
The Santa Rosa.
Campfire.
Yeah,
Campfire.
Yes. So there was a lot that was learned throughout. By the way, their water systems, what they didn't realize is that their water systems are now failing. So they rebuilt the water system, and it turned out that in both cases, these are scenarios that we haven't really seen, these firestorms before, that ultimately the houses are burned away, plastic pipe burned away. So there was a lot of open to atmosphere scenarios, and what happens in those is that in a lot of scenarios there, suction can occur, and a lot of debris and melted chemicals were sucked into the water system, and now there's contaminations, and these are with the on the lighter spectrum of the hydrocarbons, so benzol and naphthalene, all of those are now in the water system. Some are stuck, and it's a real hassle to find out where they are. They're widespread, and so there's huge problems, and the water is non-potable, as they find out now that they let everybody move in. But so the topic was what to do about wildfires encroaching into communities. The bottom line there was building up fire suppression it's not necessarily the job. Water systems aren't built to do what they're now asked. However, the cost of these fires are so outrageous that there seems to be now a different cost-benefit analysis that people are applying and are looking at the humongous cost to try to provide storage for these events and so on. We're looking at this now through a different lens, and this could mean there are some changes coming up in the future. Another presentation that I've attended was really how to train young water operators. Agencies are running into the same issue that we've seen since years, and I feel like we're actually experts in what was discussed here, bringing up young folks that want to stay in our community and offering them a chance to do so. And receiving then in return the benefit of having somebody on staff. Yeah, that concludes my report.
Good, thank you. Well, let us move into closed session, so let's take a break for a few minutes and we will go reconvene in closed session for two closed session items. One is existing litigation and the other is anticipated litigation. Always fun.